Monaghans Galway, located on the Tuam Road, is the leading dealership in Galway for new SKODA, CUPRA and Seat models. Now is the perfect time to order your new car or visit Monaghans.ie. You're welcome along to the Maroon and White pod. We have two parts to our show this evening. In part one of the show, I'm going to be joined by Athenry senior hurling manager Niall Sunderland to look back on his side's victory in the Senior B final against Portumna. And then in part two of the show, I will be joined by Cyril Farrell and Declan O'Brien to look back on the intermediate semi-finals and the Senior B final between Portumna and Athenry, of course. I'm now joined by Niall Sunderland, Athenry senior hurling manager. Niall, a few days since your victory over Portumna, has it began to sink in yet?
Uh, I don't think so. No, it was a fairly helter-skelter game, especially with the finish. Um, I think it'll take a while before we realise that we're going back training next year and we're entering into Senior A along with an intermediate team as well, which is fantastic for a group of lads to be training at that level and to be preparing for two strong championships, both in Senior A and intermediate. So, um, no, I don't think reality has sunk in, but um, I'll be happy when it does.
Just with that, I suppose it's probably a bit crazy everything that happens after the game. You have, I suppose, you're mixing with supporters, the celebrations go on, the players probably stay going for a good few days, and maybe the management leave them to it. But I suppose with everything that happens with that, I suppose it's hard to realize what you achieved.
Yeah, it is. Look, the lads said it. Look, when you win a championship match, or championship county final, you know, the lads celebrated. We all celebrated. Like the Athenry was fairly rocking now on Saturday evening. I was with a couple of ex-players of the team from 20 plus years ago, and like they commented that when they won All Irelands and when they won senior county championships, they don't remember it being as crazy as this. So, you know, when when a club is starved of success for so long, there's just a huge amount of relief, and it's just a it's just a valve being released, and everyone is just over the moon. And there was a great crowd there as well. There was a massive crowd there. I don't know what the numbers was, but the hill and the stand and everywhere was absolutely packed. So yeah, so it was a fantastic few days. But from my point of view, I'm not as young as the players, so I'm quite happy that it's all over now. Well, for now, until we get to Christmas time, and they'll probably find an excuse to celebrate again.
How long did you stay going with the players? Did you make it to the Monday club?
I made it. I think I made it to the Sunday club, you know. and but look, there's a few neighbours of mine where I'm living here. Um, there's a few elderly neighbours that wanted a photograph of the cup, so that was nice to see yesterday as well. So, and I'm sure that'll happen over the next couple of weeks where um, people will be asking for photographs of the cup, and the cup will make its way around the parish on Sunday. I think there's a big homecoming planned. Um, not only for the Senior B Cup. There was five or six other championships won this year in the club. I think there was five hurling, and I think plus the Junior C footballers won the county championship as well. So, yeah, there was a lot to celebrate, and it's important to celebrate because these things don't happen every year.
Now, can I take you back to the start of the year when I suppose you John Hardyman came in and your management team confirmed ahead of this season? When you consider what happened last year, and I suppose it was just unfortunate that you did end up in that Senior B relegation final, but like, what do you think has changed in the space of 12 months?
Look, to be very honest with you, Paul, the guys were very unlucky last year. They lost games by margins. And they had a few lads that went travelling, and they had one or two injuries. You know, they were very unlucky. As I said on a previous interview before the final, these group of guys could have easily made it to a semi final or a county final, and it's small margins because if you look at this year, Haskell found themselves in a relegation battle, and 12 months ago, it took Mullia 2 games to kind of get over them. So, and it's almost the reverse for us. We found ourselves in a relegation battle last year, and now we've creeped out where we've won. Like we're going to senior A, but there wasn't really much of a change. Like we knew that the talent was there. Um, and, and we did add to the squad. We were lucky enough to have a couple of minors break through from last year. Um, One of them being obviously Jason. He's a serious addition to any team, and he's a great prospect for Galway Hurling, not just for Athenry. Um, so nothing really, myself and John and the guys set our stall out, and you know, all of us in the backroom team, we all had a job to do, and um, it's very much a group. There's no one man who kind of dictates or kind of decides on any decisions. It's a group decision, and we were just lucky.
Did you or the management team change anything or try to make any changes to previous years, or is there anything you've noticed maybe different this year?
No, look, there was a different management team in, so we had a different approach. So different managers and different trainers and different strength and conditioning guys kind of maybe do things a little bit different. But in the whole, we're all trying to achieve the same thing. We're all trying to win games. And what one group of people might think is the right way to do it, another group of people will have a completely different way. But their goals are the same. And, their aims and their objectives at the end of the year is to win as many championship games as you possibly can, to stay as long as you can in the championship, and ultimately try and win it, because we're all there to win it. Like we're not there just to take part or just to kind of make up the numbers. But no, look, there was no, as I said in a previous interview, and I don't like repeating myself, there was no magic wand, Paul. The players bought into what we were trying to do. John Hardiman, his records speak for itself. He's a fantastic hurling coach. Um, we had an excellent S&C guy. We had Keith Jordan, who joined us who came on board. Keith is a stalwart of Athenry. He took up the mantle of, investing his time in becoming a goalkeeping coach. And Keith trained Paddy Rabbit, John Grealish, and the Gannon this year, trained with the minors as well. So, that's been a huge find. And like these guys are in our parish. Like we didn't have to go outside to kind of get them. So it was fantastic that Keith invested in himself, and he's now a fantastic goalkeeping coach. So, and we had other guys, Pete Atkins, Brian O'Regan, Stephen Kelly, Leonard Fay, like it was just a great group. We all gelled and we all got on well. There was a few arguments when it came to picking teams, but that's healthy. But no, there was no magic wand. It just worked for us. And, sometimes to win championships, Paul, you need a bit of luck. And maybe we had luck on our side this year.
How early was the Senior B title mentioned as a target?
Well, to be honest, when you enter a competition in sport, it's competitive and you want to try and win it. Nobody enters a competition, as I said, just to make up the numbers. You have to have some sort of winning mentality, and you have to instill a winning mentality. Um, and sometimes, it's about the performance as well. But, you know, ultimately, we've managed to win a Senior B title, and we're absolutely over the moon that that has happened. But if it didn't happen, you know, you get back on the horse again and you try and go again and you try and find a way and you try and find new ways and you try and bring players through for minor or under 20. But look, we never really spoke about winning the championship, to be very honest with you. We just spoke about competing in every game, and we started with Lee Mellow's game, and we were lucky enough that we won that one, and then we played Portumna in a group game. We drew with a Haskell on it, and we were lucky enough to top the group. So, and it just went from there, and thankfully we were unbeaten in the whole championship. But that's why we're all in it. Like we're all in it to stay going in the championship as long as we can.
If you're to look back on the whole year, nearly the year, Probably what stands out to you, I'd say, since you started out. Like, I'd say even if you were to add up the collective sessions and the work this group has put in, I'd say it's just been unbelievable.
Ah, look, it's been fantastic. I think one of the guys put up a stat last week. Um, I think we had over 110 or 111 sessions, and like we had a lot of challenge games. We went around the country playing different teams in different counties. Um, you know, it was just the whole thing just kind of clicked. Um, I don't know, was there any special moment? There was probably loads of special moments, but I can't think offhand. And like we had one or two people to come in to talk to the group, and it just worked. And I don't think there's any special moment or special time that we just got over the line. I think there was a willingness from the players to uh, give it their all and give it their best, and just let's see where they land.
No, it's something we've been, I suppose, previewing all the games all year and giving predictions for Senior B games. I'm not sure if you've been listening to them now or anything throughout the year, but something we did reference about G that we felt really was going to stand to you in Senior B in the long term, playing hurling, league hurling in Division One. Do you think that stood to you as a grip?
Yeah, it did. It did. In fairness, although we only managed to get over the line in one league game, but there was three or four of them that we were very close. Clare Bridge clipped us all right, but that was the only one game that we kind of shifted a big score. And but yes, it probably did. But you know, in championship and league form,
Yeah.
you can't really compare. You know, like Lee Mellows won the Division Two this year, I think memory serves me right. So, I'm sure they would sacrifice that league title if they could if they had won the Senior B championship. So I think we ended up playing something like, you know, 34, 35 lads in the league. So we kind of used it as a development and kind of seeing everyone and giving everyone a shot. So, but you can't really compare league form and championship form.
Did it help though that the majority of the group were able to stay together throughout the year? Like obviously Owen Lawless was your only player away with the Galway Senior Hurling panel.
Yeah, no, it was. And in fairness to Owen, he came back. He came back. 4 or 5 weeks before the championship. So like, that was brilliant. And yeah, it is. Yeah, like look, it's very important for lads to travel. I always say to lads, travel broadens the mind, and it's good for them. It's good for them to experience different countries and different cultures and so forth. And but we were lucky that in the majority of lads that they did stay around, and that helps in training, helps with the numbers in training, helps with the competitiveness in training. So yeah, I suppose we were lucky again that the majority of them that were there all year.
In the past, well, I suppose this year for you, it really looked like it was a kind of young team and you really had the balance between the younger and the old players. But do you think it's been a challenge in the past in Athenry getting those minor and 20 players onto the senior team?
Yeah, look, yeah, like we have young players on the team with Jason and Paddy Rabbit in goal and Connor Lawless, and like we have a few lads on the panel. But like there's lads on this team, Connor Burks, the Mark Hannons, the Paddy Hannons, the Jack Carrs, you know, like these guys have been soldiering with this senior setup for 10 plus years, so their experience was absolutely brilliant. And they really drove on training sessions and they drove on the young guys. Um, but look, it's hard to bring. It's kind of difficult when you're looking at minor setup now, because minor is under 17, so they're 16 and a half.
Yeah.
So like they're not 18. It's not minor the way minor used to be. So it's very difficult to expect a 16 and a half year old to break straight into a senior team. Like they have to. It's about size and bulk, and it's a physical game. So if you get through one, maybe two minors each year, you're doing very well. But in the majority of the minors that are coming through now, They're all excellent hurlers. They're fantastic hurlers, but they're still young, so they have to be minded and they have to be developed. And next year we have an intermediate team, and hopefully that'll be a fantastic, training ground for them to develop them. Training with the seniors, playing a bit of intermediate championship, and let's see how it goes from there. And we just have to bring them on, but we have to be careful not to bring them on too early as well.
Can I ask you about Shane Quirk? He's captain of the team at the age of
Yeah,
23.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
You
look,
obviously saw something there.
Shane captained minor teams before, and um, Shane Shane leads by example. When he speaks, he's very factual and he's very direct. He doesn't speak for long, and he chooses his words wisely. Um, and he's just a solid campaigner. And for a young man, he's an old head and the shoulders, and he's extremely capable. And I was lucky enough to be part of a under 21 team a few years ago that Shane was on, and so he. But look, it could have been Shane. It could have been five or six other guys in that team. Shane was just lucky that we gave it to him this year, and but again, there was five, six, seven leaders on that team that all rode it together.
And like Jack Carr, Kinvara, Ronan Hardyman, like these were all players who have soldiered, but for Athenry for years. But like, how important do you think it is to have that experience in the team too, even with these younger players coming through?
Massive. John Grealish has been in this team for 17 years. Paddy got the nod this year for championship, and John Grealish became an absolute fantastic mentor to Paddy. Fantastic in the group, leadership qualities in the group, led by example, early to training. Put all his efforts into the training session, driving lads on. So people like John, people like Conor Burke, people like Jack Carr, these are very, very important club people. And the young guys that are breaking into the scene, they're young, they're quiet, they don't say too much in the dressing room. They're looking around, they're learning from these. And, these are great role models to have, fantastic role models. So we're very lucky that we have the caliber of John Grealish and Conor Burke and Jack Carr and the Hardymans and many more that these guys can look up to.
Was that a difficult decision where between Paddy and John Grealish?
Yes.
Was it one of your hardest all year?
Look, there's been many, many hard decisions, and only 15 people can take to the field. You can play a game with 18, 19. But look, for now, Paddy has the jersey, and that could have been himself or John at any given time. Same with, whoever got the number 3 jersey or whoever got the number 7 jersey. As I said to them, it's not your jersey. You're custodians of that jersey. You have it for a certain time, and it moves on to the next crop of players that come in. Nobody has a God-given right to hold a jersey, and they, in fairness to the group, they all understood that.
The first game against Mellows, 319 to 19 points. You must have been really happy coming away from that first game in Senior B, particularly after what happened last year. Is that when you started to kind of realize that you were going to be there for silverware?
Well, it's always important to win your first game, because what that enables you to be, if it's a tight group, the groups go on head to head. So, the main thing coming out of that match was that we had a head to head over one team.
Mm.
But we knew it was one game, and we all knew the nature of how Senior B works. You're going to play the team again. So, like, we knew we were going to meet them again. Um, there's only 8 teams in Senior B. It's a very grueling, relentless competition where you end up playing teams twice. I think that was the same last year. I think Mullion might have played teams twice again to come out. So uh, yeah, look, we didn't go into overdrive in terms of celebration because it was the first round of the championship that we won. But we were delighted because it had got us an extra edge. If the group ended up being tight, we had a head to head over a particular team.
Have you been able to watch back the final?
No, I watched bits of it. I haven't watched it all. No, I've watched bits, but um, John Hardiman now and Stephen Kelly and a few of the lads, they spent hours and hours on this video analysis and cutting clips on Huddle and stuff like that. So I'm sure they'll get around to it over the next while or so. But no, I haven't. But I will. I will sit down and watch it all right, and I can watch it and enjoy it, I suppose. It's not very enjoyable when you're there live.
Were you happy with the performance?
I was. Look. I think the scoreline was 121 to 313, if I'm right. So,
Yeah.
22 scores to 16. You know, you can be happy, but look, it's a county final. Like, form goes out the window. There was two traditional hurling powerhouses playing in the Senior B county final. No matter how they prepared or no matter how we prepared, it was going to come down to whoever wanted it more. And you know, grit and determination and fitness and heart and drive and all that comes into it. And we were lucky enough to get over the line. It could have been easily Portumna. Joe had a point that you'd probably put your house on him to put it over the bar. Didn't go over for him. Um, and I think we went down and we got another free. I think we got another score and we won by two. But like I just thought it was destined to be a draw at one particular stage. But look, it wasn't, and we weren't trying to look for pitches and trying to organize training for tonight. Thank God.
We were just chatting and when we were reviewing the game, where we doing part two of the show with Cyril, Farrell and Declan O'Brien, but we are both saying, a lot of three of us said that Athenry controlled the game for the majority of the game, but then, as you'd expect, Portumna had just come back and throw the kitchen sink literally at you.
Yeah, they did. And look, I think there was another chance there that Paddy saved. Um, I think that if that went in, that might have put them a point up. I think I can't remember because it's all kind of very hazy, but absolutely, like we were. I think there was 4 minutes of injury time called, and I think there was an extra one and a half played, so like it ended up being 5.5. Um, oh look, it was just relief when the final whistle blew. It was just absolutely complete relief.
How did you come up with a plan for Joe Canning?
Look, you know, Joe Canning is Joe Canning. Okay, there's many county managers throughout this country that thought they had a plan for Joe Canning and it didn't work out. So, we had no special plan. We obviously had a game plan that included, like many of the Portumna players, because they're all, they've very, very dangerous players in all positions. But look, Conor Lawless took up the mantle of Mark and Joe, and we think he done a very, very good job. Conor is only a young lad. Conor's like 19 years of age. If he's even 19, probably he's 19. Yeah, this next year is his last year under 20. Um,
Was that a plan not for Connor not to go up and compete with Joe against the for the ball in the air? Was the plan to, I suppose,
well,
wait
look,
for him to
look,
come
look,
down?
look, look. Everyone talks about getting the ball to ground and trying to work it to ground and kind of not giving primary possession to people. If you win primary possession, if you're catching a puck out, it's very difficult to kind of dispossess that person. But if you bring it to ground, but look, Paul, we know. I'm not giving away any trade secrets here, but we know we spoke to Connor. Everyone knew what Joe was capable of, and Joe still came off that pitch. You can correct me if I'm wrong, with 2.7 or 2.6, whatever he got. So like, did our plan work? I don't know.
Yeah.
But we got over the line. Thank God.
And Niall, what does it mean to be in the top tier of Galway hurling now?
Look, it's fantastic for the club. Like, been great people over at the Ryan. We're all trying to achieve the same goal, and this could have happened to any group, any manager over the last 3, 4, 5, 6 years. But it just happened in the year that myself and the lads are over them, and you know it's massive. It's absolutely massive. The club behind the scenes, the executive, Joe Kelly and his team, and um, you know they've been extremely supportive. They're organising a massive day on Sunday with 5 or 6 teams driving around Athenry, and like that's not an easy thing to organise logistically. That's going to be a crazy thing. But they're like every executive around the country, like they put huge hours in behind the scenes that nobody sees. Um, because they're not front and center. So, but it's massive, and we have to sit down now. We have to plan. I think there's probably 20 plus minors eligible for adult hurling next year. So, and plus the group we have now. So, there's huge numbers to plan, and we have to be very careful planning that, and we have to make sure that each guy and each player is well looked after.
It does really show, though, particularly after what's happened to Mulla after winning Senior B, going up to Senior, and now they're coming straight back down. As competitive as Senior B is, there is a jump up to Senior Hurling.
100%, absolutely. That's why one is called Senior A and one is called Senior B. So, and like I kind of felt for Mulla really because I was looking at their games. I think they led in 2 games coming up to the final stages.
They nearly bet Captagular in the semi-final this weekend.
Inebek Capitagal, did Gort get a goal on them in
Yeah,
the
Richie
last minute?
Cummins in injury time in the relegation
Yeah,
final.
yeah, yeah. So, like, that's hard to take, and to come up and go back down again. I won't think too much of that at the moment. I'll enjoy what we've achieved in the last couple of days, and that'll all come into my mind and come into the lads' mind in February of March of next year. But um, it is going to be extremely difficult to stay up there, and if we can maintain our Senior A status over the next couple of years, I think we'll be in good shape.
I haven't asked you about your right hand man yet, John Hardyman, and you mentioned him there about the clips and everything. But Kevin Brady, who we've had on the podcast throughout the year, would have worked under John Hardyman at minor level, and he's always said the biggest surprise to him is that John Hardyman has never managed the Galway senior hurling team.
Look, I I can't sing John Hardiman's praises enough.
It was 3 hours you were in his house for at the start of the year. Was that
three
to
hours
convince him to come
three
to
hours
come in?
once. I know what in fairness to him, I think there was a little place in John's head where he said, um, I think it's time to give 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 something to Athenry, and even before, like John has been over teams in Athenry for years. Like it's not as if he just came back after not being here for 20 years. John was involved in minor teams 5 6 years ago. He was involved in the seniors back in probably 2008 or 2009. I can't remember. Um, but look, John is just his attention to detail is second to none. I've never seen anything like it before. His analysis is second to none. His training is, he concentrates on the ABCs, as he calls them, of hurling, and he relentlessly, repetitively does them each week, each week, each week. And we have a good S&C guy, great S&C guy with Peter Cunningham. And Peter did all the work at the start of the year and would dip in and out then from time to time. But look, as I said last week, I get to go on a show like this or I get to speak to the radio because my name is down as manager. But, you know, this is about the group of lads that have volunteered to be involved in the senior hurling management team in Athenry. And it's about the group of 40, 45 people that trained with us all year. And when you're all rowing together and you have like minded people working together, achieving the same goal, and I include the executive in on that as well. So you're talking up on 60 people, all rowing together and singing off the same hymn sheet. So it's the harder you work, the luckier you become, was a famous quote that a famous golfer once said, and it's very true. You know,
For yourself, when was it that you first arrived into Athenry?
Came to Athenry back in 2004. Funny enough, the week I think before Portumna and Athenry senior county final 20 years ago, where we had two lads actually playing on the team, Kieran Hardiman and Ronan Hardiman, who were mascots that day. So those photographs were all resurrected over the last week. So there was a bit of crack around them as well. Yeah, so I moved in. I got involved in the team then. Got involved in the club probably 2011 maybe. I think I can't remember offhand with the intermediate footballers at the time. So and I've been involved in the club ever since.
So you've dabbled between has it been between football and hurling since 2011 to 24?
Yeah, no, I took over the intermediate footballers probably back to 2012. I can't remember the dates, 2013 maybe. After Timmy Rabbit was there, and I was with the footballers for 2 years. Um, Probably took a break maybe for a while. I think I might have been involved in a minor football team after that, and then I took over the 21s then for probably 2 or 3 years, and I've been on the hurling side ever since then. I've been over a junior team and an intermediate team, and I had the minors last year, and now this year I took over the seniors with the lads.
How much have you enjoyed the role personally, and even since you've came into Athenry? Because it can always be maybe difficult if you're coming into a new club.
Ah, yeah, yeah. Look, extremely difficult. I'm not from Athenry, my wife is from Moore. My kids are all Athenry girls, so there's a great love and a passion for them. Like they love Athenry GA, they love the Camogie Club, and so they're all at every match that we go to, and but it's been a pleasure. I wouldn't say, like sometimes when you're on the sideline, I wouldn't use the word enjoyable. I'd use the word stressful, you know. So, but look, it's all part of the course. That's why we do it. You come off the pitch, you're stressed, your heart rate's racing. You say to yourself, "That's it. I'll never get involved again." And the winter comes, Christmas passes. You know, the bright nights start kicking in again, and then you kind of get your enthusiasm back again, and you get a pep in your step, and you go back in again. So, um, but it's fantastic for me, and I got a phone call there on Sunday from an ex-chairman of my club, neighbour and Oak, Frank Lynch, who's still heavily involved in the club. And I was so delighted that he rang me because he obviously heard through other people that I was involved in. It was a lovely phone call to get, and that he spoke very fondly about my father, and he spoke very fondly about me, and back in the times when he was calling to my house to try and get me out of bed to play a football match. So it was just great memories, and that's what the GAA is about. And if you're involved in GAA all your life, and if you move to a different area, it's the first thing you really seek out. That you go to the GAA club and try to get involved, and you know, I know no difference. That's the way I was. That's the way I was brought up, and that's the way I'll always be.
And overall, what do you think the future holds for Athenry hurling?
Oh, look, Paul. We've had a great success this year. I don't know what's going to happen in 2025. You know, the ingredients are there in the club to have a fantastic future, but there's nothing. You're entitled to nothing. Okay,
Mm.
you have to work for everything you get, and there's no sense of entitlement around Athenry GA. We know too well that there's huge work to be done. There's great work being done at the moment. All the underage structure is excellent. There's a lot of players coming through. We all know one another. All the management work very well together. All of the players kind of know one another. Like you have under 11s, under 12s at our game. You've got the minors from this year. You got the under 16s from this year, and the under 14s won a county cup this year as well. So they're all rowing in together, and there's a great buzz around the town. Great buzz around the club. The club has fantastic facilities now, and it's not stopping there. There's still stuff being done. I drove by it there today, and the car park is being done, and there's investment being made there as well. So, look, at the moment, everything is in place, but we just don't know what's around the corner, and we can just keep working hard. And if you keep working hard, you will be rewarded.
That is all. We do have time for on part one of the show with Athenry, Senior Hurling Manager Niall Sunderland. Niall, thanks a million for your time this evening, and congratulations again on winning the Senior B title. Part two of the show, I'm now joined by Cyril, Farrell and Declan O'Brien to look back on the intermediate semi-finals over the weekend, the Senior B final where that match was won and lost between Athenry and Portumna, and we'll just give predictions then on the senior semi-finals. Obviously, they were put off last weekend due to the storm, so they're back on this weekend. But for anyone that wants to, I suppose, build up to the two senior games, myself and Craig Lally did preview those games in depth last week. So if you go back and listen to last week's podcast, you'll get a lot of that there. But we will start with the Senior B. I thought it was a bit of a, I suppose, nice moment in one way. Cyril Athenry come out with the ball. Mark Hardyman catches the ball. I suppose Mark Hardyman was the mascot in the early 2000s when Athenry would have played Portumna.
Yeah, it just shows how time flies by, and they had it was kind of all brothers on the Athenry team. You had the Hardimans and you had the Lawlesses and you had the Rabbits, and so they were all kind of in the Burks, all either brothers or first cousins, and a very good kind of a young team, played very good hurling, and kind of came back. I was kind of saying in the commentary that they proved themselves a good side. They kept coming back to it. It was a great goal before half time, a penalty, and he had two more in the second half, but they kept coming and coming, and eventually won. And good game, high scoring game. Portumna wouldn't be just as balanced as Athenry, but yet let Paul, considering last year they were in relegation, they'll be disappointed, but they still had a good year.
Athenry, before we get into any of it, and Cyril, just before I bring Declan in too, they're going to get big belief off this. Maybe similar, I suppose, when Mullya went up last year. Maybe they don't have what Athenry do have now coming through at the minute.
Yeah, Paul, and there's one big difference. Like a lot of the Mullya guys were kind of mature in age, and some of them left after last year. This Athenry team is relatively very young, and they're only going to get better. And I saw them playing the day before. I saw them winning the junior title against Loughrea. Saw the minor match against Moore. Great game as well, top standard, and they would have stuff coming through. And this team will be around for a good while because they are young and they have very good hurlers. They're not at the end of their careers. A lot of them are just starting. So it's a team for the future, really.
Declan, just on it, how big of a positive is it to have a club like Athenry back at the top tier now?
Yeah, I was just looking there. It's some reminder you Portumna Athenry in 2004, and we suffered Manny's defeat with Carraroe and those two teams, but Athenry were the heyday. Portumna were about to come. I was just saying, since isn't it great to see them back again? Because there's been a lull, and you see these big clubs, they go through phases. Sarsfields did in the 90s, Athenry, Portumna still there, but I think for hurling in general, and they are potentially a powerhouse again. They won the minor Ray, they won the junior. They're back now. I look in the last of the team, they must have around 5 or 6 on the team. The last they would have been county minors the last 4 or 5 years. They've won 2 Féiles. They won the All Ireland as well recently. So I suppose Athenry getting back again, they're going to be here for a while and they're growing, as Cyril said. So I would see definitely a team that will be looking in Senior A next year as being very competitive. They're all hurlers. And they've all come through kind of like the schools as well, in the Pres Athenry, you know what I mean? And now they're going to county minors under 20s, Fitzgibbon. So I would expect Athenry to be definitely a force in the next 4 or 5 years.
Why do you think, Declan, that they will, I suppose, go from Senior B to straight away competing in Senior?
Well, I suppose, I think huge tradition in Athenry. And like all these kind of big clubs, sometimes the eye goes off the ball, you know what I mean? And I suppose 10 years ago, they weren't competing in A, yet they were up there. And then suddenly, I suppose the club in general looked, and that's what happens in bigger clubs. Sometimes, it just takes a generation. Suddenly, you've got new names coming in. So all these young hurlers now, the Lawlesses, the Rabbits, the Hardymans, as Cyril said, these are names of their parents who are heavily involved in the club and we'd have played against. So they're all coming back now, and it's like a new generation. So it's within the club to be competitive at A hurling. And I think that's at minor, under 16, under 20, and now senior. So I think when you have a club traditionally as strong as Athenry, they know they were missing out on the good heydays the last 10 years, and they felt themselves as a club they need to get back into it. But it does take time, it takes a lot of work and signs around. So I think as well, having the schools, like you have two big schools in Athenry, and I always believe that the boys, they play together with the club, they play with the schools together. It definitely creates that kind of a goodwill and confidence, and confidence is massive. So as a club, I would expect Athenry to definitely get back up to the top table in the next few years. And it was a massive win the last day for them. And again, it's a very, very young team. And I was just looking at the team there. Barrow and Lawless, who's on the county senior squad. You have no one else really. And that's always kind of an interesting point of view, because like they would have trained all year together and they had no one really gone with the minors or under 20. So that's another little advantage to have as a club team trying to progress, that you're playing together. So it's a big advantage, yeah.
Sir, am I right in saying you would have worked with John Hardiman in the past?
Oh yeah, in the school, in the colleges in St. Raphael's, and I saw him, watched him closely with the minor teams and senior teams. He'd be a top coach, qualified PE as well, science teacher. Gets on very well with people and very good to organise things. And like once they survived last year, once I heard he was getting involved, he would get the best out of the players. He'd know them inside out. And as Declan saying there, like he comes from a generation that was used to winning and playing at the top, and that's what he'd be expecting. Very cool, very steady on the line. But once he gets involved, you'd know that they're going to be ready. And when you consider last year, Paul, they were fighting relegation, and this year, it just shows you. But in Galway, there's very little between, say, fighting relegation and qualifying for a quarter-final spot. There could be a point or two somewhere along the line. So, I'd say they got the wake-up call last year, because I saw what happened to other clubs. You just look at Kiltormer at the moment, gone back down as a junior. So when things start slipping, it can be hard enough to stop. As Declan referred to there, it takes a couple of years, but the names are coming to the fore again. And they have the numbers, and they are doing the work. So I'd expect them to be there. No one will fancy meet them. They're a good team, and I know Portumna will be disappointed to lose, but I don't think Portumna are as ready at the moment as Athenry are to go up. You could go up and kind of come back down again. And I think for the B teams, it's better that Athenry went up, because to me they'd be too strong for B again next year to be kind of going from strength to strength. It's been a great year for them, and you can bet your bottom dollar that they will build on it.
Sir, you've obviously been on the podcast quite a bit, but Kevin Brady's been on quite a bit too, and he always talks about John Hardiman, and he always says that it's a shock to him how John Hardiman has never managed Galway at senior level.
Yeah, well, he was involved one time with John McIntyre, but you see, he's heavily involved in school, and he loves farming as well. I'd say it could be his own. You just not able to give it the time. You see, Paula, at county level, arena at club level now, you'll find the commitment is very, very heavy. It's 3 nights a week, and it's the weekend. And at county level, it's that plus more. So, I'd say that's the biggest thing. He had the family are young now, they're grown up, but he's still a very young man. You know what I mean? He could still be involved. But Kevin,
are you surprised that he's never I suppose even considered in the conversation for jobs? Are you surprised in that way that he's never been one of the top names mentioned, it seems, when it comes to these jobs?
I'd say he may be mentioned behind closed doors, but he probably would never let his name go forward. This is the type of guy that if he did put his name forward, you'd have to consider him seriously. And to me, he'd be the top. I think he's a brilliant coach and very good at people. But I'd say it's a lot of his own doing, in the sense that he feels that he just hasn't the time to give, because it is a full commitment, and you can see any of the counties, any of the fellas that kind of say retire after a while, they tell you the commitment is getting more and more and more. It isn't just the training and the hurling could be easy. It's organising everything and all the different, there's a full team behind the main team, shall we say. So it's getting more and more time consuming, and it doesn't look to be getting any less, if you know what I mean.
On this game, Declan, between Athenry and Portumna, where do you feel it was won and lost at the weekend?
Well, just looking at it, I suppose Athenry pretty much led for the whole game, and you kind of felt Portumna were chasing, and as Cyril said, the goal earlier on, the kind of the dubious penalties, we say, that kind of kept Portumna in the game. Athenry seemed to be scoring easier. Do you know what I mean? Paddy Rabbit was scoring, Keane Burke's frees and 1 or 2 from play. Ronan Hardiman, Shane Quirk had a point for wing back. So they always seem to be leading by the 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. And I suppose really the turning point for Portumna to get back in the game was at one stage, I think it was 18 points to 110. There were 5 points in it in the 47th minute, and Athenry seemed to be kind of had managing the game well. And then suddenly Joe Kenny won a ball, maybe 65 yards out, hit a ball in, Declan McLaughlin roofed it. And I suppose that's the potency of both Joe and Declan, that he just needs a half a chance. And suddenly there's a 2 point game in it. But then suddenly Athenry got a great goal. Mon Caulfield got a run around the middle, just left them for dead, maybe ran 30 or 40 yards, flicked it over to Kinvara, who batted into the net. A bit of an Aaron Galan kind of an effort. And then, and that's sign of a good team because it was tit for tat. So I suppose that Athenry goal pretty much kind of, gave them that bit of breathing space, we thought. And then suddenly Joe comes back and gets another goal from a free. But you always felt Portumna needed goals, where Athenry were always tipping away, getting the points. And I think that's where I felt Athenry just had an edge all the time. They had a lot more scores. They always had that kind of extra few points in the game. And bar Joe's 2 goals and Declan's goal, you just felt Portumna were chasing the game. So from that point of view, Athenry controlled the game. But it's sign of a good team. Portumna came back and got 2 goals against the run of play. Athenry come back up and get a point or two. So that to me, from a management point of view, would be kind of a character building, and they definitely will take a lot from it. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Did you feel, Cyril, I know until the end, like Portumna obviously fought back and they fought back tremendously, but did you feel Athenry were controlling this game well for the majority up until the end?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, much the same as Declan. I just felt to make a comment that if Athenry could win this game, they're a good side because we're hit with 3 kind of circle goals. I thought the moves they made, like Shane Cook was playing wing back, and for a while Jack Cannon was good in the air, and he's good in the air, and he had a good game. He actually probably his best game of the year for Portumna. But the boys in Athenry switched across Shane Cook on him, and that kind of quietened him. And again, Conor Lawless and the backs that wound up on Joe, they didn't try actually to catch the ball on Joe, because if you go up, say if you win one ball and Joe Cannon, he wins the next, he's going to damage you. So they kept just tapping the ball down. Their half-back line midfield, Mark Cannon, the 2 handles, I suppose, they, to me, got kind of on top, especially the second half. Now, Portumna did hit back with the goals, but as Declan is there, Athenry kept coming back. Now, they got the goal in the end to give them, they needed that goal to get the breathing space, but they just were that more kind of balanced and more relaxed, and kind of got the scores easier, even though, like, Portumna got 313, it's a good score enough, like, but Athenry was 121, which is a very good score. Now, the weather was lovely. There was no big, little breeze, not much. The rain, it was a lovely kind of a pet day, pitch was in great condition, and the ball was flying around the place. It was a good standard for considering, but it was the final, like, you'd know that, like, and like Athenry were thrilled afterwards, like they might have won All Irelands and County Cups, but by God, they appreciated this because they've got to see how near they were last year, going down, like getting down altogether. So like it just shows you what can happen. Portumna have reorganised. Last year they were fighting for their lives as well to stay up in Senior A, like, and this year, like, the nearly won Senior B, but they're probably. They mightn't like it being down there, but they're probably better off at the moment building a team to be a bit stronger when they do come up again, because there's no doubt they will come up. They have very good young lads coming, like, and with the older lads kind of still staying around, kind of leading the way. You'd have to say they're going to be a force again and be next year. They're going to be hard to beat.
It's Athenry 6 forwards in particular. If you look at it, Jack Kerr, Owen Caulfield, Jason Rabbit, Keane Burke, Ronan Herdman, and Killian Lawless. Like that's 6 scoring forwards to have in Senior
Yeah,
B, which is
they
huge.
are. They're all into hurl, and like the hurl very easy, and like they have an out like Carraroe's big, but Rabbit is very good, and they say the puck outside. Patrick Rabbit was hitting them long, mainly down on top of Jason Rabbit, and he was catching them in the air, like, or if he wasn't catching, they were breaking, and they were all into score. But I know that the right forwards are good, but you see the Portumna forwards, like you had Joe Sinter forwards, you had Jack one wing, and you had the young lad Andrew Doddwing, who I thought was playing very well. You had Owen O'Mara inside along with McLaughlin and Adam Fogarty. Now O'Mara came out, you had McLaughlin 14 inside. They were threatening as well. Both sets of forwards are very threatening. But you'd have to say that the half back line midfield, the backs in general of Athenry in the second half, they more or less got on top. Now I know Portumna got the 2 goals later on, but up to that they were kind of in control from the half back line up.
Declan, you've obviously been involved with Brian Hanley in previous minor teams, and it's hard to believe Paddy Rabbit has been such a good keeper for so long, but this was his first year where he consistently got a run of games, and that's obviously down to John Grealish that they hadn't goals for years too. It was a terrific stalwart, Athenry.
Yeah, I think Paddy was involved in 2018 with Jeffrey's minor team, but I know we had him at under 16 the year before. Um, you know, what the thing about Paddy is, it's usually, any goalkeeper, it's about confidence, but he's a, he wouldn't mind me saying, he's a big young lad. He's tall, he's a presence, he's a massive puck out. And there were times there he actually, if he doesn't mind me saying, he'd like to have played outfield, I think, but I think he mightn't have a choice now the way he's playing, and now that position is his. But definitely, he would have been one player that I know in the minors, but they would have built around, and we had him at under 16. On top of that, then we'd own Lawless, full back. He was a minor in 2019. Mark Hardiman was in that panel as well. And don't forget Shane Quirk was also on that minor team of 218. We had him in when he was under 16. So I was just looking there at the backs that Athenry had. Of the 6 backs, you have county minors. You have one Paddy Rabbit, you have Mark Hardiman, you have Owen Lawless, and you have Shane Quirk. You know what I mean? So like they are now at an age where you just look and being observant now, these guys are 22, 3, they're starting to really now develop. They've kind of gone through maybe possibly Fitzgibbon, Hurling, a lot of these guys as well. So do you know what I mean? And they're important to Athenry, and I presume they're going to build around those guys now. And then of course Cyril mentioned the forwards. But yeah, and I think every club needs a good goalie, and I think Paddy is a great guy to have as a good foundation for Athenry now going forward.
On Portumna, Declan, we mentioned him briefly, but like Sean Tracy and Dean Hayes came in this year, and Paddy Dolphin too, and they must be given massive credit because they really have maximised out this year.
They have, yeah. I mean, I always look and kind of see who's coming through at minor grade, let it be county trials or under 16 academy, and you wouldn't get as many coming through from Portumna as, say, the likes of Athenry, just because of numbers. So what Sean Tracy and Damien have done is fantastic. I mean, what's great to see is, like, remember Declan McLaughlin was a county minor. He didn't even make our top 40 in 2019. And then within a year or two, he was on the under 20 team, and he was on the senior panel the last year or two. So he's a guy that really has developed. So he's one guy that is very important. Jack Canning was a minor in 2017. He's really developed now as a fine player. I know he plays a bit of rugby, so I think he's important for Portumna to build around. Hopefully Joe's around for another year or two. And as Cyril said, I wouldn't know much about Andrew Canning. But yeah, like back to Damien and Sean, traditionally great men, great club players, great county players. And I think Portumna are lucky to have those guys that are willing to kind of settle the ship, build, and get Portumna back up again, which is difficult. But I think, as Cyril said, I think Senior B is possibly right now, maybe just the level where they need to rebuild because it is a big step up. But yeah, it's great to have Sean and Damien definitely around, because you need that in a club like Portumna.
Yeah, as well, Paul, there, Declan referred to, like, they have underage teams down along the line. I've seen them playing here, and they're very, very good. There will be a lot of county minors coming over Portumna in a few years' time, because you have there's other young cannons coming. There's Hayes is coming. There's Kane's coming. There's Kelly's coming. Trying to think on top of my head, all these fellas, they're young, but they're very, very good. They will be playing county, like underage. You'll find as it goes up along the line. They've regrouped, and Damien Hayes and Tracy and all these boys have put the trouble of work in, Johnny Kay, and they're all putting the heavy work in. And once you see the likes of Sean Tracy and these boys going back in over and managing the team, you can know your bottom dollar. They dig everyone out. They'll get the best team out, and they'll be kind of building down along the line. They have good young lads coming, like as you said, it was for a while there they weren't making county minors, but I predict in the next 3 or 4 years they'll have plenty of county minors.
Yeah, I think it's Jody Canning who's coming that Joe wants to, I suppose, play with in 2 years' time. I think he's under 16 at the minute, if I'm not wrong there. But, sir, just a question for you. You've obviously watched Joe Canning for years now, but do you still enjoy more than ever watching him now?
Actually, he's unreal. Like, it's a privilege to go to watch him. Even the last day, I was just saying to the lads around Darren Kelly, I said, watch the penalty and see what he's going to do. Like I've seen him hit so many penalties between, say, Portumna, county, underage, and even LIT, like the main free taker. But the one last Sunday, like, if it actually hit you, Paul, it would probably knock you. Like, it would hurt you. You know what I mean? To knock you out, it's like a rocket. It give you no chance at all. And like again, like the pass he gave into McLaughlin, spun it in. It was a bit like a few years ago. I remember playing Waterford, we were down out, and he hit 2 passes, like 20 or 30 yard passes, right into Jason Flynn, who stuck them. But he has that ability, like he has the wrist. And like, okay, he's moving on. He mightn't be able to run around as much as he was, but he's still a great player to have. Like, and when you looked at the three of them the last day and a half hour, and you had Jack good in the air, probably had his best game. Joe, centre forward. Okay, has been well marked because they know they have to mark him, and they didn't try to catch the ball. They played it very cute, tap it down and keep it away from him. And you had Andrew the other side, who I thought was playing very well. You had three cannons in the half hour line, like, and they were good. And like, you know, and their score, the 3-13 would win a lot of matches, you know, like, only that it wasn't as good as, like, all-round play of Portumna or of Athenry was just that bit better. But probably unlucky that Athenry came right this year rather than other years, because other than that, their display would probably have won the B. But that's as it is, like, and this is where they are now, like, but, you know, they will be back again next year, and I would expect Athenry to have a right foot at the championship next year, no matter what group they're drawn in.
Yeah, it really has been a privilege, I think, for all Galway hurling fans this year, Declan, to just watch Joe and the scores he's put up. I think it was 2-8 the last day, 2-13 in the semi-final.
Yeah, I think, you know what, you kind of go home the last day from the match and you kind of appreciate, you kind of hope he stays for another year or two, because you kind of feel it's worth driving down to Ballinasloe to see him, because we won't have his likes again for a long time. So sometimes we don't appreciate till he's gone. So I hope he's back next year. There's no talk of it, of course, but he's definitely someone you'd like to see in the flesh again. I remember marking him in 2004. I think he was only, maybe was he 18, 17 when we were kind of struggling Carraroe, and he got around, I think he got 212 or something in the championship match in Athenry, and I always appreciated him then. He was good then, and I just said to him, just look after yourself. And I think I kind of said that because he was kind of at that age coming out of minor. There was a lot of talk about him, but the one thing about Joe was he had a band of brothers around him. That was the first thing. You know, they're solid at Cannings, and then he had a good club team around him as well. So I think that definitely helped him in his early part of his career, and then he developed right through with Cyril said with LIT, and the rest is history. But and I think now, of course, he's in the public a lot with the book, and I think, you know, isn't it great that he can still perform like last Saturday even, and he's a busy schedule at the moment with his promoting his book, and that's important that he can still hurl for his club and nearly get them over the line in a championship match. So that tells you a lot of the person.
The one thing too for Portumna, Declan, like, obviously it'd be tough this week when they look back on it after coming back down so close to going back up, but when the dust settles, they will fancy again and having a crack off winning the senior B title next year.
Yeah, I would think so, Paul. Yeah, I think you know, if you said to them at the start of the year, they could be within 2 or 3 minutes of going up to senior A. They'd take that, and of course, they need to just kind of like let the things settle down. Very important that Damien and Sean stay around. Cyril has mentioned there's a lot of young lads coming through. What's more importantly is that the likes of Joe can stay around. You know what I mean? Because you need a kind of as a man says, a father figure, just particularly around those young lads. You know what I mean? And like Portumna will need everyone going into next year. So they won't fear anyone, and I think they've whet their appetite to realise how close they were to go up to senior A. So I think that's definitely something to look out for next year. But very important, because some of these clubs, you know, once you slip at all, it's hard to turn back for a couple of years. So I'm sure they're wary of that.
So just before we move on to the intermediate semis, from Athenry and Portumna and from being in Duggan Park at the weekend, is there anyone you feel that maybe that you weren't aware of going into Galway set up at the start of the year, but seeing them after the weekend, you think that they should get a look at the start of the year?
Yeah, well, Lawless always impressed me. I never saw him really playing bad for Galway. The few chances he got, or for college, or that type, good hurler. I've said it good for times. I always felt that Conor Burke, like, he used to play out the field a bit, would make a kind of a county cornerback. Maybe it was moved on a bit now. But the lad that impressed me looking for Galway at the moment, like, would be like Jason Rabbit, who's big and forceful up front. You know what I mean? If he wants to make it, like as Declan can tell you, if a guy wants to make it, he has to kind of make up his mind. He has to give the commitment. It isn't just about being asked in. You have to kind of say to yourself, do I really want it? Am I going to give the commitment? And have I got the time? Like, that's the biggest thing. They're all into her. Like, you know, they're Ronan Hardiman had a fantastic game, and that there's very little talk about. But like, they're all good hurlers. Like, you see, you have the like Cyril Namara, who's probably, you know, kind of mature, got over the top of this stage. But Jack Cannon is another. Saw him playing for Galway against Antrim and that, and just I felt like there's so much more in him if you can knock it over. That was his best game the last day. Like, Martin Dolphin knows how to play centre back. Oko, he's gone past county now. Like Colin Burke had a very good game cornerback. These guys are all, they're all at the hurl, but like it's a different standard, and you have to kind of commit your life to it. Really, that's well for them 3 or 4 years if you're going to do that. That's the big question, because young lads have, you know, they have a lot of life, the good lifestyle now, and they like the game, but they like the crack as well, which is part of it. But like the county set up, there isn't much time there isn't much time really to have the crack. You might if you win, and you know you're going to lose more than you're going to win, but they'll all be soon. They'll probably have got gym programs already, and here you go starting all over again. So it's a big commitment, you know. But there's plenty of young hurlers out there. Like you did the same with Aircourt and Kinvara the other day, and Tynagh, and you know, Carraroe. There's plenty of hurlers. Like, and you go through the whole, set up all the senior teams. Like if you went to every club and took 1 or 2 out of every club, you'd have a top panel of 36 or 38 out any shadow out. But to put them together, to put the mix together, it's like a jigsaw. That's the work you have to do. Like that's the problem.
Just it's interesting on that Jason Rabbit, Cyril. Obviously, he'd still be eligible next year to play under 20. But you think even at his age now, it would be worth bringing him into the senior panel?
Yeah, sure. Joe Cannon was in there as what he is. Joe Coney, all these days. Now is the time to bring them in and kind of get them used to even say to the dressing room and getting used to this. No, there'll probably be new fellas going in, but if there's an old setup, even to get used to it. And you know, you saw what you call for Castlegar, Greg Thomas, like another big man. I'm not saying they're all going to make it, but like the way the hurling is gone now, you have to kind of, you can't have all small lads. Now the boy like Capitagle, you know, you have the Collins is flying around the place, but they'll get a test next weekend now. I see, Paul, they'll be marked by cornerbacks that know how to play the game and played hard and kind of played on the edge. Be interested to see how they get on. But like there's old lads around, but for me, I don't know the boys that they have to sit down and kind of put it together and kind of mix and match and to see what they can't pick all big lads or they can't pick all small fast lads. So it's a matter of kind of getting the right mix together.
If we look at the intermediate semi-finals at the weekend in Gort, first one there, Kinvara 123, Meath Aircourt 120, sees Kinvara into the intermediate final. Declan, how impressed were you with Kinvara at the weekend?
Well, I suppose first of all, just in looking at the two teams, at the two games, I think I have been to Gort in a long time where I think as a venue it was perfect. There was a lovely atmosphere where you had 4 teams, parking. You could park in the mart if you wanted. You could park up the road, which was great. You know what I mean? So there was a lovely atmosphere. So from the first of all, I think it was important, Paul, to highlight that it was able to hold a big game or 2 big games. I think that's important to note, and there was a great atmosphere. Back to Kinvara, I suppose Kinvara are in a bit of a high at the moment. You know, they have a lot of, the perception was that they have a lot of young lads, a lot of under 20s and stuff like that. But I think they were unbeaten during the year. Kinvara are a good, strong, traditional hurling club. Michael Herbert is back in, Anthony Byrne. So they have 2 good Kinvara men over them. Everyone was talking at the start of the year that Aircourt and Dinari were the 2 teams, but actually now Kinvara have written that script up. As the game developed, and it was a really good game, both games were excellent, but this game in particular, because it was, I think they were level around 8 to 10 times right through the game, Paul. There was point for point for point for point. I think there was only a point in at half time. The one thing I would have noticed when it was all over and kind of just looking back, the big thing that Kinvara had was they had a lot more range of scores. You know what I mean? They had a lot of lads who could score the 1 point, the 2 points, whereas Aircourt relied a lot, do you know what I mean, on James Downey. And I think, you know, James got 6 from play and at least 6 from frees. So that's nearly 12 points he got. He got nearly most of their scores. So for Kinvara, there was the range of scores. What Kinvara also have is you have Conor Whelan, who got 1-4. And I would say Conor himself had a quite enough game. But when anytime Conor got the ball, something happened. And that's what happens to these county players, these star players. They might mean the game for long, but when they're on it, something happens. So, but what happened, Kinvara, was they were able to feed off other players. Were able to kind of like bring it in, like Dara Helbert freeze. He's excellent. He's a county minor a couple of years ago. You know what I mean? O'Hanrahan in midfield, Lee Martin, you know, even Josh O'Connor, Oisin Ivers. These are all good players that have come through the academy. So Kinvara, the one thing I noticed was they had a lot more scores. They grew into the game and they gained huge confidence. So yeah, that's what I was taking from it, Paul.
The penalty from Connor Whelan really seemed to be the kind of turning point here, sir.
Yeah, well, I felt in the first half when Airport to me were kind of on top and kind of scoring kind of from the outside, as Declan said, they got a lot of points from frees and from Downing these days. They didn't go for the juggler. They never gave the extra pass to go for a goal, try to kill it off. Like Kinvara were kind of in the game. To me now, like the pitch was in great condition and lovely, but like there is, to me, you're kind of playing first half. Airport had a kind of what I would call down down from the town end, like, and they were on top. I felt without really kind of pushing it through. And Airport kind of like a lot or Kinvara's a lot of young hurlers, and Connor was bound to come into it like as it went on, and he got more and more and more involved, like, and like as Declan says, probably the goal somewhat like, but Kinvara have a lovely young team, like, they're young, a lot of them are kind of after coming out of underage, played for God, but like they wouldn't be that well known. Young Fleming from Airport, there's a fella now that had been in the county panel before, kind of got injured. There's plenty of guys around. It's going to be an interesting match between Kinvara and Tynagh Abbey-Duniry. There's no doubt about that. Like, they'll know, Tynagh will know, like, that Conor Whelan is still the main man, like, and they'll probably set up a plan. Knowing Magic Kenny and Tom Brehon and these boys, they'll have their own little set up. Like, it's very nice. The last time they played Shane Maloney very deep out midfield, nearly played him as kind of, you give the ball to him, like, and he scores much from midfield as he will on the inside. They're very disappointed. Tynagh would be called from last year for losing. They felt that, like, it was theirs to win and they didn't win it, and here to go again. So it'll be a classic. It'll be a great game when it comes around.
Is Aircourt kind of biggest? I don't know, is it a problem? But like since John Fleming has come through in the Mealich team, maybe they're just struggling to get another, I suppose, star like a John Fleming through.
Yeah, they would have a few injuries as well now. Like, they're thereabouts. Like, now they did play much better this year than last year. Like, they were in that game the whole way through. Like I said, Paul, I just felt that when they were on top, they didn't go for broke. Like, it's can be easy for us sitting up just looking at it. But like, when you are on top, like if they got a goal or two in the first half, I felt to have cruised kind of in a sense to give them a breather. But like it was too tight. Kinvara stayed in the game on very little possession, and then like as it went on, they kind of got on top. And like Connor was quiet for a while, but he was bound to come into it. And then, like as Declan says, there anything he does, he brings others into it as well. Like, and Tynagh want to be wary of him because like he's due a big one. This guy can ignite in front of 80,000 people. So he's unpredictable in the sense that he's good for unbelievable scores.
What impressed you most, Declan, then about Kinvara's setup?
Well, I suppose they very much kind of like they kind of trust their own players, they trust their own positions, and that's a huge thing. They didn't take a lot out of the ball, and they moved it. Because they always have that target. Man, once you have Connor Whelan in there as a target, and Connor can play at 13, 14, 15, like as we know in the county, he's just generally sometimes up on his own up there. So once you have a target man, you're moving that ball quicker. And that was it. Around the midfield, if the shot was on, they took the shot. And this is going back to my point about the different range of scores. And they were comfortable and confident to have those shots. Their wing backs, I was impressed with even the likes of Oisin Ivers. He made one great run there at one stage. He's a very comfortable stick player, and they were able to bring players in. And I suppose, as they grew into the game, like they won the game in injury time. If you think of it, they were level 120 each, and we had around 5 or 6 minutes in injury time. They won the game by getting 3 points in a row. You know what I mean? Considering that the game was tit for tat all right through. So that's really impressive. And I think, again, they will, Gennaro will want to keep note because these guys now have really huge confidence going into this, into the final. And I think this match will be a game changer for them purely because of confidence to be able to win a tight match right through, and then to get 3 points in 5 minutes to win a county or intermediate semi-final is fantastic. So I think, again, going back to Connor, having their target man, he's a game changer. If you're struggling with Connor, you can bring him out. But I think the nearer he's to goal, the better. And I think it's a great style to have for Kinvara if you have a target man like Connor in there. Because as we know, whether it's a low ball or a high ball, left or right, Connor generally will either get it or draw attention. I think that's a great thing to have, particularly at club level.
If we look at the other semi-final, your own club, Declan, Carraroe and Tynagh Abbey-Duniry at the weekend. I suppose Carraroe, you've had difficult years in the past, but like when you look at the last 2 years, you brought Tynagh to extra time, you lost to Tynagh by 2 points. There must start to be, I suppose, a bit of pride now in the club about this intermediate team.
Yeah, I'd say, I think I was just looking there. I think they're nearly, I think, 8 years now, or 8 years, 9 years down intermediate. And it does take, I predicted it would take 8 to 10 years to rebuild, because Carmore needed to rebuild anyways. And that's just like every club, you go through that. And there's no doubt the club, with Dickie Walsh involved and Pádraig McConnell and Sean Grealish and the lads, they're Carmore men, and they're on a 2 year rebuild, and this is year two. But I think there's no doubt that this is progress, even though they're very disappointed this week, I can only imagine. It's easy for me to say this, but last year we got to a quarter final and really tested Duniry and Kilbeckenty. They went down to extra time or injury time. And this year we got to a semi-final. And I know again we're beaten by the same team. But I think this year was different because it was anyone's game. They were level on the 60th minute, or with a few minutes to go, they were level, and then Duniry got 2 or 3 quick points and the game is over. So for Carmore, it's a very young team. I think bar Danny Cummins, who he will be the elderly statesman. It's a very young team, and I think there's 7 or 8 of the lads that won that minor in 2019. I think you've like 8 or 9 of that team involved, which is a huge thing to get back from a minor team. So that was always the backbone. Then you've Kevin Killay coming in, Sean Killay, Kieran Fahy. So I think Carmore, yeah, they're disappointed. And I think it was there for them to win. It's just Duniry at the last couple of minutes worked the 2 or 3 scores to pull away. And that's just the way it is. But again, they were very unlucky and they played very, very well. And there is a sense now, there's a real kind of connection with this team with Carmore. There's a sense now that we're going places. We're up there. We're nearly there. And so the future is bright. And then the underage academy is good in Carmore. So I think like that, we've definitely turned the corner. This team is leading the club, and hopefully it's only a matter of time. But huge disappointment, but again, massive effort done by the team the last year or two.
They are really a club, sir, now that's starting to fulfill this potential.
Yeah, just listen to Declan there, and he's right. To me now, it's important that the backroom team stay on. Lads will be disappointed and they'll be looking, why did they lose? And you'll have plenty of extra shouts of saying maybe should have done this and should have done that. But when they look at their year and their overall year, and they sit back and take time and reflect on it, they've had a good year. They've played very, very well. Beat a strong Climber team in the quarter-final, down to the stretch against let's face it, against a team that's fancy to win it out all year. Tynagh would be the favourites. Tynagh Abbey-Duniry would be the favourites all year to win it out. And the random, as tight as anyone, could have gone either way. But I think, small little things can change it. There's a fella there, Conor Flaherty. You're talking about young guys coming through. Now, this guy is a fine cut of a man, still a young man, strong in the air as well. Another fine physique. And they've other lads like that. I think next year they'll know their team that little bit better. I think they'll start with their strongest team. They had lads coming back, I suppose, from injury and from way out foreign. If you start your strongest team and have your top 2 or 3 subs coming on, it will take that. But they are going to be there. They'll get that. Look, it's still progress. Quarter final last year, semi final this year. A lot of clubs will give the right hand to get in there. Okay, they'll be disappointed. Why wouldn't they? But they are going out to the favourites, and even going in against Kinvara now. And Kinvara are nice. But Tynagh will still probably be the favourites going in there. So they've lost the game, but they've lost nothing in defeat. The year was still good, and they can only be building it, and they will get stronger, because going back to that minor team that we saw beating Athenry, a fancy Athenry team, next year they're around the minor final again. But they have the numbers and they are doing the work, and that's the big thing. Once you have that, if you have the bit of talent and you do the work, you're fine. The only thing is, if sometimes you have talent and you don't work, you're going over. You just need to put the two together. They would have the talent, and now they're putting in the work, and I can see them coming. Next year they're going to be very, very strong in the competition again.
I'm going to flip the script in one sense, Cyril. Have Tynagh come back to the pack? Because if you look at last year, they hammered Meath Aircourt in the semi-final, and they just get over the line against Carraroe at the weekend.
Yeah, well, Carraroe had them close last year. You see, last year Aircourt would feel that it didn't. It was Tynagh got a goal before half time with 7 or 8 going in at half time, got a goal to start second half. The game kind of just ran out. It ran past Aircourt. They would feel very disappointed the way they played last year. The Aircourt would. Whereas Tynagh felt kind of they got no game until the final, and it was too late. Like Ballindereen beat them. Tynagh this year would be kind of more settled in the sense like that young Paul Killeen is back playing steady. He had a fractured hand and played the last day. Power, the minor fella that's kind of half injured a lot of time, he's playing full time now. So they got caught last year in the full back line. They had against Carraroe been on. Shield was strong, like Carraroe, very physical lads the other day. And so just to match that physicality, I think they probably learned from last year. And like goalie at the moment, Brendan Lynch is playing well. They have a full forward at the moment. Thomas Murphy kind of gave it up for a while to go back in it. He's kind of getting a goal a game. When he was taken off the last, he's still managing a goal a game. And they have Shane Maloney more or less out the field, playing kind of as a third midfielder, playing very well. They have Pádraig Breheny these days. They're balanced. We have more than Niall Maloney. They're hurting since last year. You know what I mean? They're waiting for this day, up since last year. And I said they can't wait for it to come. I would think that the supporters would be more realistic this time. Last year, I felt that they felt just they were going to ban the Southwest Round to collect a cup, and as you know, that doesn't happen, and it won't happen that easy against Kinvara either, because they could turn it on as well, but they wouldn't be as kind of physically as strong at the moment as Tynagh Abbey-Duniry are.
What did you make of Tynagh Abbey-Duniry, Declan, on Saturday?
Like what Cyril was saying, we all thought. I mean, especially last year they were supposed to go pick up the cup and they didn't because Ballinderry bet them 3-18 to 2-18. So we always knew that to be back this year stronger and better. That's the presumption. And if I'm being honest with you, as the game went down the last day, I thought Tynagh Abbey-Duniry were better than I thought they were better, but maybe I have to kind of look at my own club and say, hold on now, Carraroe really got stuck into them and hurled their way into the game. So suddenly Carraroe really gave it to Duniry, but yet Duniry won it. If you look back at the quarterfinal, Rahul Newcastle and Tynagh Abbey-Duniry, again, Tynagh Abbey-Duniry got 2 early goals and they were up 2-6 to a point at one stage in a wet Saturday. But Rahul came back and and went down to 2 or 3 points, but yet they were able to pull away. So I suppose, in fairness to them, they're getting bigger tests this year, but yet they're the same as they were last year. They're in the county final. I do believe the 2 games, the Rahul match and the Carraroe match, they were 2 difficult opponents to play, but yet they still won. So I would think they're going into this county final, A, because they lost last year. They're hungry. B, they've got 2 really good tests now in the last few weeks. And I just feel that will give them the bite. Plus, they've Matty Kenny, Liam Hodgins, Kevin Devine, good lads over them. Again, it's very much driven by within the club. And I just feel that, like the last day with 3 minutes to go, they were level with Carraroe. They just worked the 2 or 3 scores, bit of composure, and they won the match. So I think they did prove in a different way that they are a good team without scoring and beating teams well off the pitch. So I think that's something that will definitely favour them going into the final, Paul.
Are they both favourites for you to win the intermediate title and go up to Senior B?
Yeah, they'll be fair to me. Well, Kinvara are very young. Anything can happen with a young team. They could shoot out the blocks and play fantastic stuff. They play it lively. And as Declan referred to there, they do play the ball in very fast. Tynagh will know who they have to mark really, playing, and the likes of, say, you have Killeen and Shane Maloney and Breheny, kind of good leaders. Johnny Connery's having a great game as well. Niall Maloney been more just feel that they're more balanced, and I really think last year's defeat should help them this to get over the line.
Do you expect Tynagh to get over the line in the final against Kinvara, Declan?
I do, yeah. I just think I think last year, losing the final to Ballinderry, even though scoring 2-18. So that's the first thing. And then having getting the last 2 matches against Rahun and Carraroe, 2 different type of matches, they still were able to pull it out and win at the end. So I think, yeah, I would agree. I think, as Cyril said, he hit a few lads, Breheny, Conroy, Killeen, Maloney, good lads around them. To me, they're just physically stronger. The only thing you would say is Conor Whelan, as we know, is the go-to person. If they can cut that off, that supply, you would expect Tynagh Abbey-Duniry to win this.
If we look lads, just at the senior semi-finals, I'm just going to get your predictions here, as I mentioned. So obviously, both games called off last week due to the storm. So it's on this Saturday now, and it's Capitagle Thomas's half one in Kenny Park. Liam Gordon is the referee for that one, and then 3:15, Clembridge, Loughrea, Kenny Park. In the second semi-final, so they're both at the senior rescheduled semi-finals. Sir, if I come to you first, who are the two teams that are going to be in the county final for you?
Yeah, well, Thomases are going to be the favourites until someone beats them. And like the way they're going, they're very hard to beat. Without hitting the heights, they're winning their matches. And God help the team that they do hit the heights against, because they could blow them out the gate. Now, Capitagle will be very tough. The weather won't phase them now either, and they'll like it kind of, they'll fight till the end. They're probably a surprise team this year to a lot in the county, because people would figure, well, their chances are gone. But fair play to them, they're back in it again. And they have fellas up front, the manager, Collins is these guys up front are ready to hurl. But like the big test will come when they meet Baxter, who are going to mark them. Kind of play within the rules, just play on the edge. And Thomas are good at that. You'd expect Thomas to get through there, but it will be tough. It won't be as simple as people think, but they should get through. And the other one, Loughrea will be slight favourites against Clarenbridge. Loughrea kind of performed very well early on. Tommy Kelly got his troops in order, even missing a lot of lads. Now they're nearly all back, I'd say, except McManus. They're all available for selection. We'll be bursting at the gut to get at Clarenbridge. But I think Clarenbridge are very, very good hurlers. And the day against Loughrea, whatever happened, is one of these days. They're much better than people think. And that, the Loughrea supporters might be thinking, we're looking forward to the final against Thomas's. And that can be dangerous, because the top 20 in Clarenbridge, whether they come on or off the team, they're not weak in the team. And to me, they're much better. That's a real 50-50 game. That's going to go down to the wire. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if that one went to extra time, because Clarenbridge are carrying their 15 very good hurlers, and the 4 or 5 come on that are just as good. So that makes them very, very dangerous. Loughrea are much the same, but maybe not as experienced as before, because a lot of new names coming, and maybe not as physical strong as the other Loughrea teams. But they would love, I know, to get into a final again and to kind of redeem themselves. They're kind of on a mission, because the bed last year, just didn't perform when they needed to. But it's a big ask as well, because Clarenbridge have been around the block. You'd have to say, Paul, that only Thomases are so good. Like the likes of Clarenbridge, Loughrea, Turlockmore, Sarsfields, these boys, they'd all be winning a cup here and there if Thomases weren't as strong. You know what I mean? They'd be tipping in here and there. Sarsfields would go, and Thomas, or Clarenbridge would probably go, and Turlock would have gone. They'd be all kind of getting one here and there. But with Thomas is so strong, they're now going for 7 in a row. And I keep thinking of what David Burke said to me when they had won the 5 in a row. And we was been interviewed afterwards at Galway Bay, and I said to him, just saying about the 5. And he looked at me, he said, Cyril, he said, would you believe? He said, I'm not kind of bullshitting. He said, I'm thinking of 7. Peter as well did it before. They won 7 way back. And he said, that's the dream for him. He's got the 6. And the 7 is there now. I keep thinking, he's the lead.
What will you say to him if they do the 7?
I'd say it's time for you to retire now. He's such a great leader, but he wasn't saying it out of, he wasn't being boastful. This is after winning the 5th now, and he's still so it'd be some achievement, for a club, for a rural club, it's unbelievable. They're on one side of the Slivaki Mountains, and they're a fantastic club. No, they have to go out and do it again the next day, because Cappy will be tough. It'll be nothing in it with them. But to get into a final, it's going to take some team to beat them.
So you're expecting Thomas's Loughrea just about?
I don't know about Loughrea. It'll be very tight, just about. But I just have the feeling Loughrea wouldn't want to underestimate, just because they beat Clarenbridge well in that group game. They'd want to get that out of their heads. That's the one I'd be fearful of.
And Declan, who do you expect to be in the county final?
Yeah, I reckon, to keep it simple here, St. Thomas's and Loughrea. I think Cyril has covered off a lot. And in fairness, I do believe Thomas will have more than Capitagle. And the drive for 7 is still there, and they don't talk about it, as you know, and they got their kind of rude awakening later on the year. The Turlockmore match was a massive win for them, and now they're in that, they can smell it again. So I think Thomas is to be Capitagle, who kind of surprised people, let's be honest with you, by beating Sarsfields. And then the Loughrea Clarenbridge match, as Cyril says, a very 50-50. I just feel there's a kind of a missed opportunity in Loughrea of 2022 when they had the County Cup won. And I think last year they kind of got caught, so they want to get back in there again. They have a lot of work done. They have a lot of work done behind the scenes. So I believe that Loughrea will just have enough over Clarenbridge, but I expect it to be very tight. I was just thinking overall, if if you're a young player and at this stage, you're at the shop window, aren't you? Because if Neil Dunn was there, he's there with his Clare Bridge hat on the next day. But what an opportunity for a young lad now, if you're 20, 21, 22, that wants to get on a Galway senior panel, because I presume it'll be an open book now. So I think if you have that opportunity to showcase it, now is your chance. You're at the shop window. So, and this is the same for the intermediate. So that's something that should be that should drive a lot of players the next year to perform at the highest level. But yeah, for me, St. Thomas is to win and Loughrea, just about.
Yeah, I think everyone is just tipping Loughrea to win that one and Thomas's at the minute. As I said earlier in the podcast, we do have a preview from last week in depth because the games are obviously supposed to take place last week. If anyone wants to go back and listen to that, but that's all we do have time for on today's show. Thanks to Declan and Cyril for coming on.